Welcome to Shadow Tales Archive. Tonight's story is titled, The House at the End of Winter Ridge. Let the shadows speak.
Part 1, The Locked Room. I used to think I was the only person who truly understood that silence could be dangerous. Not the peaceful kind of silence, like lying in a field watching clouds, but the kind that hums in your ears, presses into your chest, and makes your skin itch. The kind you only feel in places no one's lived in for a very long time, or places where someone, or something, is waiting for you not to leave. Winter Ridge was one of those places. I grew up in a small town in Colorado where every kid knew better than to hang around Winter Ridge during the off-season. It was a fancy development in the mountains about a 30-minute drive from town. Technically a resort community, but it was empty 9 months out of the year. Luxury homes built into the pines, all with massive windows and perfect views of the ski slopes that no one used until the snow came. In the fall, the houses sat like abandoned dollhouses, fully furnished and spotless, with no people inside. The roads weren't plowed, the power was sometimes off, and you could walk the entire stretch of the development without seeing another human soul. I was 16 when I started going up there. It wasn't to break anything or steal. I didn't care about that. I just wanted to be inside them. I liked the feeling of moving through rooms that weren't mine. Sitting on a leather couch someone else picked out. Looking at books on shelves half-read. Finding old toys in closets. It was like the echoes of real families lingered in the walls. And sometimes, if you listened hard enough, the houses would talk back. That's what I told myself anyway. My name's Mason, and I didn't always go alone. There's a stretch of cabins up near the far end of Winter Ridge. Most of them look like something out of an overpriced catalog. Exposed beams, stone fireplaces, kitchens with marble countertops no one ever cooked on. But at the very end of the loop, on a narrow cul-de-sac that doesn't show up on Google Maps, there's a house with no address plaque. Just a mailbox with no number and a black flag that's always up, even though the mail never comes. That house is the reason I can't sleep anymore. And it's the reason I don't speak to Sadie. Sadie was my best friend. Sometimes more, sometimes less. We'd known each other since kindergarten, and she was the first person I ever told about my trips to Winter Ridge. I was careful at first, didn't tell her where it was or how I got in. But the way she looked at me when I said it, like she wanted to be there too, wore me down. It was her idea to visit the house at the end. We'd already gone into maybe 10 or 12 of the other cabins by that point. We'd even gotten bold enough to spend the night in one. But the last house was different. The windows were always dark. The blinds drawn. The air colder near it. The kind of place that looked like it had never been warm. It's probably just never finished, I said the first time she pointed it out. Maybe the builder abandoned it. She squinted through the trees. No, look at the curtains. Someone lives there. No one lives here in October. Exactly. The door wasn't locked. That should have been my first warning. Every other place I'd been in Winter Ridge needed lockpicks, or at least a credit card and some finesse. This one swung open like it had been waiting for us. It didn't creak, didn't groan. It breathed. Just one slow exhale as the seal broke and cold air rushed over us. Sadie was already inside before I could say anything. She wore that same stupid grin she always had when she knew I was scared but wouldn't admit it. I followed her in, saying nothing. The entryway was pitch black. No windows. No furniture. The walls were unfinished wood, like the place had never gotten drywall. It smelled like wet cedar and mold. The only thing in the whole space was a staircase going down. "You're kidding?" I whispered. "Nope," she said, walking to the top step. "Basement first. Come on." Why would anyone build the basement entrance right at the front door? Why not? I hesitated, looking back at the open front door. The trees outside looked further away than before. "Leave it open," I said. "Just in case." She rolled her eyes but didn't argue. That was a rare thing. The basement wasn't like the rest of the house. It was finished, almost too finished. Carpeted stairs, framed photos on the walls, shelves with toys, books, even an old stereo. But no dust, no cobwebs, like someone had just vacuumed. I walked toward one of the photos. A family, mother, father, 2 girls. Blurred out faces, not from bad printing, like someone had smeared the ink afterward. "I don't like this," I said. Sadie didn't answer. She was already standing in front of a door at the far end of the room. Not a closet door. A heavy metal door painted matte black with no handle. Just a lock. A lock that didn't belong in a house like this. Industrial. Keypad. Scratch. "Help me figure out the code," she said. "What? No. Come on. Don't you want to know what's behind it?" "No," I said too quickly. Sadie tilted her head. "You hear that?" I didn't. Not at first. Then I did. It sounded like whispering, light like wind through pine trees, but coming from inside the walls. And beneath that, a clicking sound. Rhythmic. Like fingernails tapping wood. I backed away. Sadie didn't move. The whispering got louder. So did the clicking. And then the stereo clicked on. Part 2. Things you don't hear until it's too late. The stereo crackled like it had been asleep for a decade and was only now waking up. Then it began to play. Not music. Not a voice. Just a tone, low, warbling, slightly off tune. Like an old cassette recorded over one too many times. It rose and fell in irregular waves, almost like it was sinking to my heartbeat. Sadie turned toward it slowly, her face unreadable. I could see the reflection of the stereo light blinking red in her eyes. "Sadie," I said louder than I meant to, "turn that off." I didn't turn it on. I moved toward the stereo, but she raised a hand to stop me. "Wait." "What?" She pointed toward the wall beside the black door. I hadn't noticed before, but there was something drawn in pencil or charcoal, barely visible unless the light hit it just right. It was a name. Or maybe a list of them. Names scratched over each other again and again until they bled into one large dark mass. But a few still stood out. Natalie, Elise, Grace, Eva. And at the very bottom, barely etched in, Sadie. I didn't remember walking over to her, but I was suddenly there, yanking her backward from the wall. "Okay, we're leaving. Now." Her voice was flat. "My name's on it. It's a coincidence. You think someone broke in here before us and just happened to write my name on the wall?" "I don't care," I snapped. "We're done." She didn't fight me, but she kept staring at the list as I dragged her away from the black door. The stereo fell silent as we climbed the stairs, as if it had finished its message. When we reached the top, I expected the front door to still be open. It wasn't. "Did you shut it?" I asked. Sadie shook her head slowly. I pushed on the handle. It didn't budge. Not stuck, locked. There was no visible deadbolt. No keypad. Just a normal door that now refused to open. I banged on it. Shoved. Kicked. Nothing. Sadie backed away down the hall, glancing left and right. "There's gotta be another way out." She turned and headed down a hallway I hadn't noticed before, lined with closed doors. Too many for a single floor. The air was different here. Still but heavy, like we were walking deeper into something we weren't meant to find. The first door opened into what looked like a child's bedroom. Neat. Decorated. Too perfect. Like it had been staged for a magazine shoot and then sealed shut. A stuffed bear sat on the bed. Its button eyes had been gouged out. Sadie didn't react. She just turned to the next door. This one opened to a laundry room. Washer, dryer, a single plastic bin of folded towels. I was about to shut it when I saw something scrawled into the dryer's front panel. Carved in jagged lines, almost like with a knife. "Doors don't work the same here." My mouth went dry. "What is this place?" I whispered. Sadie didn't answer. Her hand was hovering over the knob of the next door. This room was darker than the others. A faint scent hit me first, sweet, almost floral, but with a rot underneath. like air freshener over something dead. The room was a nursery. Pink walls, a white crib, dust floating like spores in the stale air. There was a mobile hanging over the crib. It spun slowly even though there was no breeze. Each dangling figure was a tiny girl, crudely handmade from twine and cloth. Some had hair. Some had dresses. All had little red excess where the mouth should be. Sadie stepped forward, almost in a trance. "Sadie, stop." She reached the crib and touched the side. The wood creaked. Then the door slammed behind us. The sound shattered everything. I ran to the door and yanked it open, but the hallway wasn't there anymore. It was the basement again. Same carpet. Same photos. Same black door. Only this time the stereo wasn't playing. The wall with the names was bare. And the black door was open. "Don't go near it," I said. Sadie didn't listen. She was walking toward it like someone being called. "Sadie, stop." She paused in the doorway, then looked back. Her eyes were wrong. Flat. Clouded. Like someone had smeared fog inside them. "Sadie, come here," I said carefully. She blinked. Once. Twice. Then she screamed. Her scream wasn't just fear. It was pain. Raw and animal. I ran to her, grabbed her arm, and yanked her back from the door. Something was in there. I didn't look. I didn't want to look. I just remember the cold. Not room temperature cold, but void cold, the kind that sinks into your teeth and stays there. My nose started bleeding. Sadie collapsed to the ground, sobbing, clutching her head. I slammed the black door shut. There was no lock, but it stayed closed. It took us hours to find a way out. The house kept changing. Doors led to stairwells, stairwells led to closets, closets to more rooms. At one point we found a kitchen we knew we'd already passed twice. Eventually we found a door that opened into the woods behind Winter Ridge. No driveway. No porch. We didn't ask questions. We ran. That was 3 years ago. I haven't seen Sadie since that night. She disappeared a month later. Left school. Left town. No one knew where she went. Her parents said she started talking about hearing the mobile and names on the walls. They thought she needed help. Then one day she was just gone. I went back to Winter Ridge once after that, just to be sure. The house. It wasn't there anymore. Part 3. Where the names go. After that night, everything felt wrong. It wasn't just the dreams. Those came later. It was the silence. The same kind that hung in the empty houses up at Winter Ridge. The kind that seeps into your bones and changes the way you move. The kind that makes you hear your name when no one's around. My house didn't feel like home anymore. My bedroom walls creaked differently. The corners of mirrors seemed darker. I started unplugging things at night, clocks, night lights, my phone, because I couldn't stand the sound of anything electronic. I was scared they might turn on by themselves. Like that stereo did. Sadie stopped texting me after 3 days. The last message she sent read, "I can't get the smell out of my hair." I asked what she meant. She never answered. I kept seeing her at school, but it was like she wasn't really there. She wore long sleeves even when it was hot. She flinched when people touched her. She drew symbols in the margins of her notebooks, rings with black dots in the center, and what looked like hands with no fingers. One day I found one of those drawings shoved into my locker. No note, just the picture. On the back in small letters she'd written, "If you see your name, leave." I didn't tell anyone. I didn't go to the police. What would I say? "Hey officer, I broke into a cabin that doesn't exist anymore and now I can't sleep without dreaming of spinning mobiles and lists of dead girls?" No, I kept my mouth shut, just like she did. The dreams started 2 weeks later. They always opened the same way. I was in the woods, walking alone through falling snow. No sound but the crunch of my boots. Then I'd see the house. Not all of it, just pieces. A window with drawn curtains. A sliver of black wood. A mailbox with no number. Always in the distance. Sometimes I got closer. Sometimes I got inside. But I never saw the whole thing. until the night I heard my name. It wasn't spoken. It wasn't shouted. It was written, etched into a wooden beam in the nursery I thought I'd forgotten. The mobile spun above me, silent but fast, and the dolls were different this time. They had names stitched to their chests. Natalie, Elise, Grace, Eva. And then the newest one, Sadie. Her doll was different. It was stained. One of the arms was torn like something had pulled it off. I reached for it and the mobile snapped its string. The dolls fell. The room disappeared. And I woke up screaming. I couldn't go back to school after that. I told my parents I had the flu. They believed me, probably because I looked like I had the flu. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. I spent most of the day staring at the wall, waiting for the dreams to start again even though it was still daylight. That's when I started noticing things. Scratches on my windowsill. Moss growing along my carpet. The faint sound of music, familiar, garbled like a warped lullaby, drifting from my vent at night. I thought I was losing my mind. And maybe I was. But then I saw the flyer. It was taped to the bulletin board at the library, where I'd gone to try and read anything that wasn't about haunted houses. Missing Sadie Carter. She'd vanished. No note. No goodbye. Her car was still in the driveway. Her phone on her desk. They said she must have run away. But I knew better. I knew where the names go. That night I found the symbol again. The one she'd drawn. But it wasn't on paper. It was burned into my bedroom ceiling. Part 4. Back down the ridge. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The ceiling glowed faintly with that scorched symbol. A circle within a circle. A dot in the center. And the smallest detail, the part that sent a shiver down my spine, was how it dripped. The wood around it was darker, sagging like the mark had bled something into it. I stood on my bed and ran my hand across the burn. The ceiling was dry. The lines were deep. And I hadn't made them. At dawn I packed a bag. Not much. Just a flashlight, a notebook, 2 granola bars, and the necklace Sadie once left in my glove compartment. A tiny silver leaf on a black cord. She wore it every day our freshman year, back when life was just school, late-night gas station snacks, and whispered jokes about which teachers were secretly lizard people. That version of Sadie was gone. But I wasn't going to let the ridge have her. The drive up took longer than usual. The main road to Winter Ridge had been partially washed out by a storm, and my GPS kept trying to reroute me to roads that didn't exist. Private drive. No access. Seasonal closure. Over and over again. I turned it off and relied on memory. That was a mistake. I found the trail eventually, not the one with the nice sign and gravel shoulder, but the old back road that ran behind the maintenance sheds and through a thinning pine forest. It was barely wide enough for my car, and every branch that scraped the windows felt like fingers dragging their nails across the paint. As I got closer, the temperature dropped. Not a little. A lot. It was October, but I swear I saw frost on the tips of the needles. My breath fogged inside the car. The ridge was waiting. Winter Ridge wasn't empty like I remembered. There were lights. Soft ones. One in a window, another from a porch lamp. Too steady for candles, too dim for electricity. They didn't flicker, but they didn't glow either. It was like the houses were pretending. No cars in the driveways. No tire tracks. Just light. As if the ridge was rehearsing being alive. The house at the end was still there. But it looked different. Smaller somehow. Twisted. Like a memory that had decayed. The black mailbox leaned sideways, its flag up. There was a single letter inside. No address. No stamp. Just a folded sheet of paper with one word. Mason. I left the engine running. I had every intention of grabbing the note and leaving. But when I opened the car door, the engine died. Not sputtered. Not slowed. Stopped. Like someone had cut the line. I turned the key. Nothing. I tried again. Still nothing. The ridge had closed behind me. I approached the house. The closer I got, the more wrong the architecture looked. The windows weren't symmetrical. The roof line sagged like it was melting. The door was off-center, too small, and the siding had nails sticking out in uneven rows. There were new carvings in the frame. The same symbol from my ceiling, over and over again, sometimes overlapping, sometimes connected. A web. I stepped inside. The air smelled like flowers. Old pressed flowers. Like someone had dried them in a book and left them to rot. There was no furniture. Just toys. Dozens of them. Lined up along the baseboards, wooden dolls, headless action figures, broken puzzles. Each one tagged with a name. Handwritten in faded marker. I moved slowly, scanning. Natalie. Elise. Grace. Eva. Some I recognized from my dream. Then I saw another tag. Sadie. It was tied to a pair of blue canvas shoes. Her shoes. The same one she wore that day. I knelt down, heart hammering, and picked up the tag. There was something written on the back. A date. November 14th. That was 5 days from now. The shoes were still clean. I heard a click behind me. Not a door. Not a lock. The mobile. Spinning. Somehow, impossibly, it hung from the ceiling again, despite there being no crib, no fixture, nothing to hold it. It spun faster, and the dolls began to hum. Part 5. The Archivist. The humming got louder. Not from the dolls themselves, but from the walls. From inside them. It was low at first, like a throat clearing beneath floorboards. Then it changed pitch. Grew sharper. More urgent. Like something tuning itself to me. I staggered backward as the mobile spun faster, its arms whipping like they were caught in a storm. The doll's limbs twisted midair, pulled toward some invisible force at the center of the spinning. Then they stopped. All at once. Frozen mid-turn, each doll's X-stitched mouth pointed down at me. The humming ceased. And then I heard it. Not from the dolls. From the house. A voice. Oh, drat. Like it had been waiting a long time to be spoken. You came back too early. I ran. I didn't care where. I didn't check the hallway. I just bolted into the next room, nearly slamming the door behind me. Only, it wasn't a door I recognized. It had no knob. Just a latch. I pulled it shut and turned to face. Bookshelves. A lot of them. It looked like a study, or maybe a library. The walls were covered floor to ceiling in shelves, all packed with old leather-bound journals. No titles. No numbers. Just identical black spines and faded red ribbons hanging from their tops like bookmarks. A fireplace sat unlit in the center of the far wall, above which hung a painting. I stared. The painting was of me. Not just someone like me. Me. Same hoodie. Same scar above the eyebrow from where I fell off my bike at 10. Same tired, confused look in the eyes. I stepped closer. The background of the painting was black. Nothing behind me. Just void. But in the shadows along the bottom edge of the canvas, there were other faces. Barely visible. Hidden in the dark paint. Children. Dozens of them. Watching me. A voice spoke behind me. You shouldn't be here yet. I whipped around. A man stood between two shelves, where I was sure no one had been moments ago. He was tall, maybe 6'3", with sharp shoulders and a long dark coat that brushed the floor. His face was pale and expressionless except for the eyes. They didn't reflect the light. No iris, no whites. Just dull gray. Like the surface of old mirrors. Who are you? I asked, stepping backward. He tilted his head slightly, then pointed toward the shelves. I'm the one who remembers. What? This house forgets. I do not. That is the contract. Contract. He walked past me, hands clasped behind his back, and pulled a book from the top shelf without looking. It had a red ribbon just like the others. He handed it to me. My name was etched into the cover. Mason Keller. I didn't want to open it, but I did. The pages were filled with writing. My writing. I recognized the way I crossed my T's and slanted my Y's. But I hadn't written this. Not yet. The first few pages were journal entries, then drawings, then police names. Not just the ones I saw on the toy tags, but new ones I didn't recognize. Dozens, hundreds, and mine was at the bottom, circled in red ink. Below that, another name was written in pencil. June. I looked up. Who's June? The man didn't answer. He just nodded toward the fireplace. There was something written in ash above the hearth. Memory is the payment for presence. I dropped the book. It landed open to the last page. A drawing of the ridge. But it was different. More roads. More houses. More lights. And at the center, a large building labeled the archive. The man's voice floated from behind me. You came too soon, Mason. But now that you're here, you can't leave until it takes what it needs. I turned to question him, but he was gone. Only dust remained, and the fireplace ignited with a sound like whispering teeth. Part 6. The Price of Remembering. The fire in the hearth burned cold. Not cold like winter, but cold like the absence of heat itself. The flames were blue, flickering without smoke, casting no warmth into the room. And yet I could feel them in my bones, like they were rewriting me from the inside out. The book with my name lay open on the floor. Its pages fluttered violently as if caught in wind, but the room was still. And then, as if something chose for me, the pages stopped turning. A single sentence stretched across the center of the page. The house eats what the world forgets. I took a step back. The air felt heavier than it had minutes ago, thicker, as though each breath carried dust that hadn't settled for years. My throat burned, but I couldn't stop breathing it in. I turned toward the door. Or what should have been the door. There was nothing but more shelves. No latch. No knob. Just a solid wall of black spine journals, all with the same red ribbon. I pulled one down. The name burned into the cover, AVA Reed. I opened it to the middle. The entry was written in loopy cursive. Daddy says we'll only be here for one weekend. But I like this house. The dolls talk when I sleep. They say they're waiting for more girls to come. Maybe they'll let me stay longer if I say yes. My hand trembled as I flipped forward. The handwriting became messier, less coherent. Letters started repeating. Then the ink changed, smearing into red-brown stains like dried blood. One page had a drawing. A little girl holding hands with a tall, faceless figure. Underneath was a caption written in a different hand. She said yes. I slammed the book shut. And that's when I heard the voice again. But this time it wasn't the man from before. It was Sadie. Very faint. Very far away. Mason. I turned, heart hammering. Sadie? Silence. Then again, clearer and closer. Mason, don't look at the walls. I looked at the walls. I know I shouldn't have. But instinct wins over logic in moments like that. And when I did, I saw something I'll never forget. The journals were moving. Not shaking. Breathing. Each book rising and falling slightly, like lungs under the skin of the house. Then the shelves began to pull inward. The room was shrinking. The flames rose behind me, casting my shadow across the far wall, and there, in the flickering silhouette, I saw something else standing beside me. Tall. Thin. Its head tilted at an unnatural angle. Not breathing. Not blinking. Just watching. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I just barreled through the shelves, crashing into the wall, and, somehow, fell through it. Not a door. Not a passage. Just space giving way beneath my hands. I landed hard. In a hallway. But not the same one I'd entered through. This one was older. Wooden. Rotting in places. There were handprints smeared in black along the baseboards. Child-sized. Some dragged downward like someone had tried to hold themselves up before falling. A single light flickered overhead. And then came the whisper. 6 days. It wasn't Sadie this time. It wasn't the man. It was a chorus. Children. Dozens of voices. All speaking at once in a whisper too quiet to come from lungs. A whisper that sounded like it rose from the floor itself. 6 days left. 6 days to give it back. Or the archive writes you in forever. A door opened at the end of the hall. Light spilled out, warm and golden, like late summer sun through a bedroom window. I walked toward it, because what else could I do? The room was normal. A child's bedroom. Books on shelves. A desk with school papers. A bed with star-patterned sheets. A photo on the nightstand showed a family, a man, a woman, and a girl. The girl was Sadie. She looked 10 years old. I crossed the room and picked up the photo. The people next to Sadie, her parents, looked wrong. Their eyes were just a little too wide. Their faces too smooth, like they'd been repainted by someone who didn't know what humans were supposed to look like. The label on the back read, June 14th, Winter Ridge. But the handwriting was mine. Something about this room felt still. Not quiet, frozen. Like a snapshot of time that had been removed from the rest of the world and hidden here, deep inside a place that shouldn't exist. I sat on the edge of the bed, and for the first time since coming back, I cried. I don't remember falling asleep, but I remember the dream. I was standing in a field of paper, stretching forever. Each sheet had a name written on it, and the wind tried to blow them away, but hands kept rising from the ground to hold them down. And the wind kept screaming, "Remember her." I woke up to the mobile spinning again, but this time it was above my head, and there was a new doll on it, small, with black yarn hair, a tiny silver leaf tied around its neck. Part 7. The Memory Loop. I stared at the doll. It dangled inches above my chest, swaying gently even though the air in the room was dead still. The silver leaf necklace around its neck shimmered in the golden light like it was real, like it was Sadie's. I reached up, fingers trembling, and touched the mobile. It didn't feel like wood. It pulsed. The moment I made contact, the room vanished. Gone in an instant, like the set of a play stripped from the stage. I stood alone in a vast blackness, the mobile above me spinning faster, the light from its orbit casting long, warped shadows. Then I heard the door creak open. Footsteps. Children's laughter, warped, out of sync, overlapping like echoes from a tape that's been copied too many times. And then, let's watch it again. Light burst across the darkness, forming a rectangle in front of me like a projection screen. The image flickered, and I saw myself, at 13, breaking into one of the houses at Winter Ridge for the first time. I watched as I crept through the mudroom, flashlight beam jittering, heart hammering in my younger chest. I remembered that night, perfectly. But I hadn't remembered the shadow in the hallway. Not until now. In the projection, I froze. The shadow stood at the end of the hallway, tall, wrong, humming in a pitch too low for human throats. My younger self never turned around, never noticed. The screen went black. Another image replaced it. This time, Sadie at 14 sitting on a swing, sketching in her journal. I moved closer. She was drawing the symbol. The one from the ceiling. From the house. From the books. I heard her voice. A whisper. You always hear it before you see it, and by then you're part of it. The screen flickered, then changed again. This time it was the house. Only older. Dilapidated. Overgrown. The siding torn, the roof half caved. A man stood in front of it, staring up, his face hidden by a hat. He held something in his hands. A photograph. He flipped it over. On the back, written in faded red ink, June 1923. First entry. Then the film began to burn. The screen sizzled and peeled away as if someone had lit a match behind the film strip. The mobile above me spun violently, the leaf necklace shimmering like it was trying to warn me. And then I was back in the bedroom. The doll was gone. So was the mobile. But the feeling in the air, the static charge, the pressure behind my eyes, it told me something had changed. I turned toward the door. It was open now. Beyond it, a hallway of mirrors. Each mirror reflected something different. Not my reflection. Not exactly. In the first, I saw myself older, maybe 20, eyes sunken, skin gray. I was inside the archive shelving a book. The label read Emma Langford. I didn't know who that was. In the second, I saw Sadie, but she was in a hospital room. Blankets up to her chin, tubes in her arm, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. The monitor showed a flat line. I stumbled away from the mirrors. My stomach churned. My legs felt numb. I don't know how long I wandered that hallway. The mirrors went on for what felt like miles. Each one showed a version of a future that hadn't happened, or maybe already had. Some showed the ridge empty, buried in snow. Some showed it burning. One showed the house, massive now, risen like a cathedral in the woods, with people kneeling before it, worshipping. Then a door at the end. Carved into the wood were the words, "Memory is a circle. Let it close or be swallowed whole." Below it, someone had scrawled a name in what looked like blood. Mason. I touched the door. It was warm. It opened on its own. Inside was the office. The same office from the original cabin. Leather chair. Bookshelf. But this time the desk had something on it. A single page. Type. Exit instructions. I stepped forward and began to read. If you are reading this, the house has not yet taken your mind. You have 6 days from your first contact with the archive to either offer a memory or replace it with another. Do not forget who you are. The house feeds on the erosion of identity. The name written last is the name it wants. To stop the cycle, the archive must forget. To make it forget, you must find the red room. To find the red room, you must remember June. I looked down at the bottom of the page. The last line was handwritten in black ink. She's still here. And beneath it, a fresh fingerprint. And blood. Part 8. The red room doesn't want to be found. The page with the exit instructions crumpled in my hand as I stepped away from the desk. My brain felt like it was trying to fold in on itself, conflicting realities stacking like cards in a rigged deck. None of it made sense, and yet it had to. There were rules here, buried in the static and whispers. I just had to find the pattern before the house decided to erase me too. I looked back at the words. To make it forget, you must find the red room. And somewhere behind that, the other line whispered louder. She's still here. Sadie. I moved through the next door, stepping cautiously into another corridor, but this one was different. No mirrors. No light. Just walls of red cloth. Velvet, soft to the touch, but pulsing faintly, like muscle. The air was warm and metallic. Blood-like. Each step made the floor ripple beneath my feet like I was walking on something alive. I forced myself not to look too closely at what lay between the seams. The hallway bent in impossible angles. Turned back on itself. Stairs curved upward, then downward, then into nothing. The house had dropped all pretenses of geometry. And still I kept going. Eventually I found a room. It wasn't the red room. Not yet. But it was something. A nursery again. Third time now. But this one was wrong in new ways. No toys. No crib. Just walls covered in writing. Black marker, red crayon, old blood, scrawled across every surface in frantic, uneven lines. Each phrase looped back to the next, over and over. I forgot the face. She said I was her brother, but I don't have a sister. He made me a new name. I'm not Mason, I'm not Mason, I'm not Mason. I stumbled back, heart pounding. The house was infected with memory. Or maybe infected with the absence of it. I turned to leave. And that's when I saw her. Sadie. Standing at the center of the room. Only she wasn't 16 anymore. She was 8. Wearing a faded red sundress. Barefoot. Eyes wide and glassy, lips parted like she'd forgotten how to speak. Sadie, I breathed. She blinked. What? Then again. And smiled. But it wasn't her smile. Not really. It was like something had studied her smile and was mimicking it. Too smooth, too wide, too eager. Do you remember my name? She asked, voice high and sing-song. Of course I do. She tilted her head. No, you remember the shape of me. That's not the same. My chest tightened. Where's the red room? I asked. She pointed to the wall. Not to a door, but to a drawing scratched into the surface. A red circle. A black dot in the center. The same symbol. You have to go through the memory sink, she said in that same artificial cadence. What's the memory sink? She didn't answer. She just walked into the wall. I stood there for a long time, staring at the spot she'd vanished into. The velvet walls pulsed behind me. Eventually, I reached out and pressed my hand against the symbol. The wall dissolved. I fell. Not through space. Through thought. Images flared around me, some mine, some not. A birthday party with no candles. A hospital room where no one visits. A funeral where the casket is empty. Each memory felt planted like someone else's roots were growing in my head. Then the memories began to speak. Voices whispering questions directly into my skull. What was your first lie? When did you first forget someone on purpose? What would you trade to be remembered? I clenched my jaw and pushed forward. Then the questions stopped, and I landed. The red room was silent. It was neither bright nor dark. It just was like a waiting mouth. The floor was a mirror. The walls were pulsing veins of crimson and black. And in the center, on a stone pedestal, sat the book. But it wasn't like the others. This one was bound in leather too, but darker, slick with something wet. It had no ribbon, no spine, no title, only a hole carved into its center. A perfect circle. Inside it, a single object. Sadie's silver leaf necklace. I stepped forward, trembling. Something rose from the corners of the room. Shapes, shadows, versions of me at different ages, standing in a circle, heads bowed. They spoke in unison. To forget the house, you must let it remember you. I picked up the necklace, and the book snapped shut on my hand. Pain exploded up my arm. Not physical pain, mental. Every memory in my head began to unravel, rewind, distort. I was seeing my own life played backward, scrambled. My mom's voice became someone else's. Sadie's name twisted into Sarah, then June, then unknown female. I screamed. The shadows closed in. And then, silence. I was standing in my bedroom. Home. Back in my real clothes. The necklace gone. No books. No blood. No fire. Just silence. And taped to my mirror, a library checkout slip. Title, Mason Keller, archived. Do never. Part 9. Some memories aren't yours. For 2 whole days, I convinced myself I'd made it out. That maybe I'd hallucinated the whole thing. That grief had warped my brain and I'd constructed a fantasy of ghosts, cursed houses, and eldritch memory vaults to protect myself from the real pain of losing Sadie. It almost worked, until I saw the girl in the mirror. I was brushing my teeth, half asleep, when I caught a flicker of movement behind me. My bedroom door was closed, the window shut, but the reflection showed someone else, standing just past my shoulder. She wore a red sundress. Her mouth was stitched shut. I turned around. No one was there. But in the mirror she remained, just watching. That night, I burned the slip of paper that said, Mason Keller, archived. But the fire didn't destroy it. The flames consumed the paper, but the letters stayed in the air, hovering, branded in the smoke. On the 3rd day I went back to the ridge, not because I wanted to, because I had to. Something was calling me, not with sound but through absence. It was like the house had carved a hollow space in my brain, and now everything that wasn't it felt wrong. Reality didn't fit anymore. So I drove. Alone. No backpack. No flashlight. Just a single object in my pocket. Sadie's silver leaf necklace. I don't even remember picking it up again. Winter Ridge looked different. Less like a neighborhood and more like a memory of one. The houses were flat, faded at the edges as if they were sketches someone had tried to erase. There was no wind, no sound, Not even birds. The only thing that still looked solid was the house at the end. The one I swore didn't exist anymore. And on the front lawn stood a girl. She looked just like Sadie, only younger, smiling, and holding a book. As I stepped out of the car, the air around me shifted. Not cooler, not warmer, just thinner. Like reality itself was running out of breath. The girl held the book out. I approached slowly, heart pounding. The cover was blank, but I knew what it was. Another archive. Another ledger of memories claimed. "Do you want it back?" she asked. Her voice was gentle, too gentle, like a question she already knew the answer to. "What?" I asked. "Your name," she said. "You traded it." I took the book. My hands shook as I opened it. The pages were blank, every one of them. No journal entries, no drawings, no lists, just emptiness. And on the very last page, scribbled in faint pencil, "Some memories weren't yours to keep." The girl turned and walked toward the house. I followed her, not because I believed there was a way out, but because I needed to see, needed to know what I'd left behind. Inside, the rooms were still there. The velvet hallways, the pulsing walls, the breathing books. But now, I understood. The house didn't trap you. It invited you to leave pieces behind. It gave you a choice: forget or be forgotten. We reached the nursery. The mobile hung from the ceiling again. It had only one doll. One stitched hoodie, crooked smile, and a name tag around the neck. Mason Keller. I reached for it. The girl shook her head. "You can't take it out," she said, "but you can leave something in." "What do you mean?" "To fix a broken memory, you have to break another." She held out a second doll. This one had no name, just a blank space where the tag should be. I hesitated. Then I took it, and I thought, what do I give it? What do I let it take? I closed my eyes, and I pictured Sadie. Not how she looked in the ridge, not how she looked in the mirrors, but the real Sadie, sitting in my bedroom, drawing stupid doodles in the margins of her school books, laughing too loud at jokes that weren't funny, singing off-key in my car, throwing popcorn at the TV when movies got cliché. That's Sadie. And I whispered her name, and I let it go. The doll vanished. The mobile stopped spinning, and for the first time in days, the house breathed out, like it had been holding something in and finally let it go. The walls pulsed once, gently, then went still. I woke up in my car, parked outside my house. No sign of the ridge, no signs I'd left. The gas tank was full. My clothes were clean. My phone had no missed calls, no texts, no contact named Sadie. I checked my photos. She wasn't in them, not even group ones. At first I panicked, but then I felt peace. The ache was gone, not forgotten, just filed away, somewhere deeper than memory. And now I wait. Sometimes I hear children laughing in the distance. Sometimes I see a red sundress hanging in the back of a closet I know I never opened. Sometimes I wake up with paper cuts on my fingers. But I don't go back, because I understand now. The house at the end of Winter Ridge doesn't trap people. It collects stories. And mine is written.
And that was tonight's tale from the Shadowed Tales archive. If it left a mark on your mind, if the silence feels heavier now, then the story did what it was meant to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the darkness. New stories are always on their way. Until then, keep the lights low and the doors locked.